A nightmare in Athens as the Longhorns get beaten down between the hedges. We're talking about it. The Locked On Longhorns postgame show starts now. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. Texas falls to Georgia again. The final score last night in Athens, Georgia 35. Texas 10. The Longhorns get outscored 21-0 in the fourth quarter. It's actually the second game in a row that Texas was outscored 21-0 in the fourth. Remember, they almost let Vanderbilt come back in the game in Austin a couple of weeks ago. And then last night, in what was a one-possession game going into the final frame, Texas gets punked in every phase in the final 15 minutes, and Georgia turns what was a close game for 45 minutes into an absolute beat down the stretch. And obviously the Longhorns playoff hopes on very thin ice. So much to get into. We'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Way more bad and way more ugly. But I want to start with some big picture conversation, more macro conversation, and just something that absolutely has to change if this Texas football program is going to get where we all want it to get. Steve Sarkisian has now lost 6 straight games against top 5 teams. He is 1-7 against top 5 opponents during his time at Texas. The one win, the second game of the 2023 season when the Longhorns went to Tuscaloosa and took care of Nick Saban and Alabama. That was fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's been a long time since that game went down. And it's now 6 straight top 5 losses for Texas. Obviously, Steve Sarkisian has done a ton of great things as the head coach at Texas. A ton of great things. But to win championships in this conference or national championships, you have to beat top 5 teams. To be the best, you got to beat the best. And we know that Georgia has been one of the premier programs in college football in the last 5 years. The Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian have had 3 cracks at Georgia in the last 2 seasons. They are now 0-3. You want to win championships, these are the types of teams that you have to beat. Steve Sarkisian is now 0-7 against Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, and Kalen DeBoer. 3 of the best coaches in the country. I know Alabama lost to Oklahoma yesterday, but Kalen DeBoer, very good coach, running a very good program. We know what Ryan Day is. We know what Kirby Smart is. Those are the types of coaches that you have to beat if you want to win championships. So somehow, some way, Steve Sarkisian has to find a way to win games against the best teams in this sport. He'll get a great opportunity on Black Friday against Texas A&M. That'll be a top 5 team. The Aggies survived against South Carolina. They're not losing to Sanford next weekend. They're going to roll into Austin as a top 5 team in the country. So a chance for Sark to end that 6-game losing streak. But now when we bring things back to 2025, it might be too little, too late. Obviously, all sorts of conversation about if Texas finishes the year 9-3, could they sneak in to the college football playoff? We don't know the answer to that right now, but the eye test is going to matter, right? The eye test is going to matter. And the Longhorns losing this game by 25, that hurts a lot more than losing this game by 3 or 7. A lot tougher to stomach a blowout loss than, one that was a 1-score game that could have come down to the final minute. So obviously the Longhorns, nothing they can do about Georgia. They got to turn their attention to Arkansas, and they got to turn their attention to Texas A&M to try to end the year with a couple of wins to at least give themselves a chance. But the team that I watched play last night, they don't look like a college football playoff team to me. They might find a way to get in. They might get the help they need around the country. But even if they somehow do make it, it's not going to be a very long stay for Texas in the CFP because there are all sorts of issues with this team, and they continue to pop up at the worst possible times. Texas just got whipped on the lines of scrimmage again. I mean, we saw it in both meetings last year. It wasn't as bad in the stat sheet last night as it was in the games in 2024, but Texas really, really struggled to run the football. How about 23 rushing yards for the Longhorns on 17 carries? That's 1.4 yards per carry. Last year, Texas was 1.1 in both games. So that's a little bit of a step up. Hey, we're moving in the right direction. 1.4 yards a carry, not going to get it done against a team as good as Georgia, especially in their house. They're now 52-2 in their last 54 home games. You need to establish some semblance of a running game. We know it hasn't been a strength for Texas this year. We know Georgia has one of the best run defenses in America, but you had to find a way to get something going on the ground, and Texas couldn't do it. Obviously, some sack yardage in there changes the stats a little bit, but even if you remove the sack yardage, Texas averaged 2.8 yards a carry. That's not close to what you needed to achieve balance on offense. The first half offensively, Texas gets the ball first. They march down the field. They kick a field goal. Would have liked for it to have been a touchdown and get a third down crossing route over the middle to Ryan Wingo. Perfectly thrown ball by Arch Manning. Ryan Wingo drops it, and drops were a theme of last night's game, especially in the first half. How about 4 first half drops by Texas? Again, these types of mistakes that you can't make against a team as good as Georgia. That was a huge play right there for Texas. Obviously, it stalls out the drive, and Texas has to settle for 3 instead of throwing that first punch and getting into the end zone on the open possession. I don't know what it's been about those mesh routes, those crossing routes. It hasn't worked for Arch and Ryan Wingo. Even when the play is blocked perfectly, even when Wingo gets wide open, even when Arch Manning throws a perfect ball, it's just not getting completed right now. And it sucks because that can be a great play for you. And if Wingo makes that catch, maybe he ends up turning up field and going into the end zone. But it just hasn't worked for Texas this year. That was a huge, huge miss. And then the offense, they were 0 for 6 on third down in the first half, 6 penalties in the first half, those 4 drops that we talked about. Obviously, the Longhorns were down 14-3 at recess. So the only possession that they did score on in the first half was that field goal. The other drives, punt, interception, punt, and then the sack taken at the very end of the half. 3 points, not really going to get it done. But despite that, the Longhorns were able to cut this to 14-10. The Texas defense struggled early on. They gave up 2 touchdown drives on Georgia's first 2 possessions. Then the Longhorns started to figure some things out defensively, and they kept this team in the football game. Anthony Hill gets the huge interception, gives Texas great field position. The Longhorns were able to score on that 6-play, 36-yard touchdown drive midway through the third quarter. It's 14-10, and I think everybody is thinking, all right, we've got a real shot here. We have a real shot here. The Texas offense didn't touch the ball again until it was 28-10. It was 14-10. The next time Arch Manning saw the field, it was 28-10 and pretty much over. And the Longhorn season basically ended in 5 plays. Maybe I'm being over dramatic. Last night's game basically ended in 5 plays. And now we know Texas won't be in the SEC championship. So we could say the Longhorns' SEC title hopes went out the window in just a 5-play sequence. Colin Simmons jumping off sides on a 4th down and 5. Obviously, Georgia had already converted on a 4th down and 1 earlier in that possession from their own 36-yard line. My God, the cojones on Kirby Smart. You tip your cap. I mean, if Texas gets a stop there, the Longhorns get the ball with great field position, a chance to score a touchdown and take the lead. And it just feels like Kirby Smart is the Midas man when it comes to playing Texas. Everything he touches turns to gold. Every decision he makes is the right one. Obviously, the fake punt in the SEC championship last year. Then you've got the decision to go for it twice on 4th down in that possession. Obviously, they get the first one, and then you had the Colin Simmons offsides. That's the first play of the 5-play sequence. I'm getting sidetracked. Play after that, Nate Frazier, 7-yard run. Play after that, Chauncey Bowen, 7-yard run. Then you get the blown coverage touchdown to London Humphreys. That made it 21-10. And then obviously the surprise onside kick that surprised everybody, including Texas. And perfect call by Kirby Smart. Totally fooled Steve Sarkisian. And that's why Kirby Smart's the best coach in the country. That's why he's got a couple of national championships. That's why he's always in the mix to win championships in this conference, and nationally, he's awesome. And again, just a genius call. It's one of those decisions. If it doesn't work, obviously Texas is set up with a great opportunity to get back into the football game. But because it did work, it allowed Georgia to turn, again, what was a 4-point game into an 18-point game in what felt like the blink of an eye. Not and I. So that was tough right there. And yeah, Georgia they ran away from Texas in that fourth quarter. We knew it would be a 4-quarter battle. And once again, Texas, we have not seen this Longhorn team play a complete 60-minute football game. They were nowhere close tonight, but we felt like we talked about it all last week. I think every Longhorn fan knew that Texas was going to have to play a damn near perfect game in all three phases to have a chance to do what only one team has done since before COVID, and that's win a game between the hedges. And Texas, way too many mistakes. They had 2 weeks to prepare for that. All the drops, all the penalties, all the missed assignments and blown coverages again on defense. Just not nearly good enough to beat a team like that. So we'll continue to talk about it, more micro, more of what went wrong for the game, from the game, and obviously where Texas goes from here. But just a nightmare. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for Texas. The one thing that couldn't happen last night was a blowout loss, and that's exactly what happened. All right, we'll continue our Locked On Longhorns postgame show here in a minute. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. Hey, basketball is back. The Texas men's basketball team did get a win yesterday. I don't know how much of you care about that, but the NBA is back, college basketball is back, and there is no better way to get in on the action than with our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets from everything from who's going to score the next basket to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same game parlays for shots at even bigger payouts. More ways to play, more ways to win than ever before. FanDuel keeps every basketball game more exciting. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. The Longhorns fall to Georgia last night, 35-10, the final score. Again, the fourth quarter, Texas outscored 21-0, outgained 119-64, and pretty much outclassed in virtually every possible measure. And you could just see all of the preseason hopes and dreams for this Texas team just slowly fade away after every punch Georgia landed down the stretch. And golly, we knew this would be a game decided in the trenches. Yeah, everyone's going to talk about Arch Manning and everyone's going to talk about the skill position players. That's just how it always works. But we knew that Texas needed to bring it on the lines of scrimmage. And you go back and look at Texas's two most recent games against top 10 teams, Vanderbilt a couple of weeks ago, and then the Oklahoma game in Red River in Dallas. Texas won up front. The offensive line played pretty well in both of those games. The defensive line had their way in both of those games. You figured it was going to take that type of performance from the big boys in the trenches, and it just did not happen. And we talked about Georgia's pass rush not being very good this year, them having a tough time getting sacks, getting tackles for loss, just wreaking havoc in the backfield. Yeah, they didn't have much of a problem last night. 3 sacks of Arch Manning. That ties a season high for Georgia. They had 7 tackles for a loss. Felt like Arch Manning was running for his life a lot. Not a lot of clean pockets at all. And again, we gave the rushing stats in the first segment, just 1.4 yards per carry on the ground for Texas. If you look at the 3 losses to the Bulldogs in the last 2 years, Texas has given up 16 sacks and 32 TFLs, while mustering just 83 net rushing yards on 72 official attempts. That's 1.15 yards per carry. 16 sacks, 32 TFLs, 1.15 yards per carry against Georgia in these 3 games in the last 2 years. You don't need to look at any other stat. Penalties, third down conversions, all those other things, you could throw those out the window. If you are going to get whipped that poorly on the offensive line, you're just not going to beat a team like this. And, I think we were all a little nervous, even though the Texas O-line played a good game against Vanderbilt. I think we were all a little bit nervous with how that group was going to handle this atmosphere, that crowd, and just a Kirby Smart / Glenn Schumann led defense. They did not handle it very well at all. And just incredibly frustrating there. Arch Manning, I thought Arch Manning played a pretty good game. The interception, not great at all. Overthrew DeAndre Moore over the middle. Thought DeAndre Moore maybe got held there. Boy, one penalty on Georgia in the entire game, and it didn't come until the third quarter. It's amazing what a whistle can do, because on the very next play after they called that pass interference penalty on Georgia, Texas scored a touchdown. And the Longhorns, just a lot of penalties, and Georgia wasn't committing any holds apparently. But look, I already said more about the officials than I should have. When you lose by 25, you don't get to blame the officials. That's not why Texas lost the game at all. And I think you pretty much had to call just about every penalty that Texas had. Like they were holding a lot, false starts. You can't ignore those calls. The offsides on Colin Simmons, that was clear as day. Those are penalties that you absolutely had to call. And it's just, coming out of a bye week, you had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. And to see some of the mistakes that we saw from Texas, just not disciplined enough. They've had at least 8 penalties in these 3 games against Georgia. Missed assignments, poor alignment on defense. We were all kind of hoping, okay, Michael Taft back in the secondary, that's going to clean some things up on the back end. Still too many open Georgia receivers. Obviously, give Gunnar Stockton credit. He's having a great year. 5 touchdowns. He was awesome last night. But Texas made life too easy for him. Not enough of a pass rush for Texas up front. Just 2 sacks for the Longhorns. Remember, Texas came into yesterday leading the country in sacks. Just 2 yesterday. Not enough there for Texas. And just missed assignments, blown coverages, missed tackles on the back end. Boy, Zachariah Branch blowing right by Michael Taft and Jelani McDonald, turning a short gain into something that was a hell of a lot bigger. And there were just some easy pitches and catches, especially for touchdowns. You would think when you get closer to the goal line, there's not a lot of real estate, less space to cover. So you would think guys aren't going to be as open, but there were some guys who were just wide open for Georgia in this game through the air. Gunnar Stockton, he had as many touchdowns as he had incompletions. 5 touchdowns, 5 incompletions for him last night. He was great. The offensive line held up. And Georgia they whipped Texas physically again. So that's obviously a really good team. But for Texas to get, again, where we want them to get, they've got to find a way to get over the Georgia hump. It's that simple. And the Longhorns won't see Georgia again this year unless somehow we see these teams meet in the playoff. Again, not looking very likely for Texas right now. These 2 teams will not play next year either. So as it stands, Texas won't get another opportunity at revenge against the Dogs until 2027. And this one's going to sting for a lot of reasons. Got to find a way to start winning some of these games. Steve Sarkisian's getting James Franklin comparisons right now. It's not what any of us want. James Franklin was 1-20 against top 5 teams in his coaching career. Steve Sarkisian 2-13 in his career. He's 1-7 at Texas, 2-13 overall. I don't really care about what he did before Texas. 1-7, 6 straight losses against top 5 teams. Not breaking any news to anybody when I say that you have to beat those kinds of teams if you want to win championships. So just frustrating all around. I thought Arch Manning played pretty well for Texas. I can't even remember if I said that. It's pretty late. I'm recording this on a Saturday night, but just not enough help from Arch, from the running game, from his receivers, from the offensive line. And the defense just falling apart in the second half as well. So tough one for the Longhorns. And well, where does Texas go from here? Got to bounce back. Got to win these last 2. Got to hope you get some help from around the country. And it's probably a good thing that Texas A&M won yesterday, because that could make the Longhorns win over A&M on Black Friday in that final game of the season look a lot better. But obviously, Texas, they're going to have to play a lot better if they want to beat Texas A&M. I know the Aggies struggled yesterday, but that's still a very good team coming to town the day after Turkey Day. Got to get through Arkansas first. Try to win these last 2, but even then, that might not be enough. You could not get blown out against Georgia, and you got blown out against Georgia. Just brutal for Texas. So there you go. That's my immediate reaction. By the way, Texas was 2 of 12 on third down, and they were 4 of 15 on the money downs last night. Got to make big plays. Can't shoot yourself in the foot. Got to step up in big moments. Texas didn't. Georgia made all the plays when they needed to. That's why they're so good, and they've got our number right now, unfortunately. All right. I'll take your thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below. Would love to hear from y'all. Your micro takeaways from last night's game, your macro takeaways for where this Texas football team is right now. Obviously, we'll continue to talk about this throughout the week, and we will turn our attention to Arkansas, but plenty more to unpack from the Georgia game. And we'll be doing it right here on Locked On Longhorns. If you made it this far, number one, God bless you. Number two, please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, all of those great things. That's how I don't get fired. So thank you very much. Really do appreciate y'all's continued support of Locked On Longhorns. Try to enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll be back tomorrow with more takeaways from the game. But thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.